Welcome back to the studio here at the Engine Performance Expo. Randy, Neil, and Dan, boy, they just took us on a journey. How interesting was that?
Oh, they're fantastic. I mean, the relationship between all of these parts. We keep talking about it over and over again. Things are systems. They don't exist in isolation. They're not independent. Everything is connected. And Randy and Dan just gave us a tutorial on that.
You change one thing, you change everything. But we're about to dive into it with Trevor from Get 'em Performance. And Get 'em, I'm like, go get 'em, right? And you're like, no, man, there's actually a meaning behind it. Talk a little bit about your background, Trevor, because we're going to talk carburetor parts. We're going to talk a little big money bracket racing, which I am super interested in. I know everybody wants to just go fast and get to the stripe first, but you can make a lot more money bracket racing these days. But how did you guys get started? Like, talk a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I grew up in motorsports. I'm a third generation. We started out truck and tractor pulling. We'd run blown Hemis. We got into that side of the business, which I still love the truck and tractor. I love the grassroots side of racing. Then you get into, I was in DuPont for 20 years, did a lot of the NASCAR programs and everything. And then I moved over into, I was with Holley for a few years. And then after I left Holley, I got into actually comp cams.
That's where we met.
And him and I spent some time in Dubai. We spent some time racing together. And of course, you have kids, you get older, you marry the kids, and all that comes along. And you get some of these private equity companies that are buying and selling. It's like, you know what? I'm going to jump out on my own. And a whole idea of Get 'em Performance was Grady, my oldest, Eli, and Trevor Motorsports. And they junior drags to race. And we played a lot of the NHRA stuff. We played a lot of the other bracket racing. But something that's come on the past few years is really a lot of actual the big money bracket races. I mean, we can race for $1 million about once a month now. So that changes. But going to Get 'em.
You heard that right, folks. $1 million. $1 million bracket races. They're a common deal. Everybody should know this by now, but it does blow people's mind. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. Well, you've got great engine builders out there that kind of focus. They do some NHRA stuff, but they focus on the Sunset Performance engines, the Chris Wilson Performance engines. You start looking at those guys, and they really do focus on the bracket racing and being extremely consistent. So that's a whole nother program that when we played Pro Stock, that was as much horsepower as we could make. When we played a lot of the racing, it's as much horsepower as we could make. Now a lot of it in the big money bracket racing, it's how fast can we go and how consistent can we get there and how repeatable is it? So then we get into carburetor world, and I love the carburetor. I love Pro Stock probably as much as anybody. The Steve Schmitz, those guys are all a lot of my heroes in that side. So when you get into making something consistent, all right, you get into molds, you get into castings, so it's like now we have machinery, big CNC machinery, as we talk about Rottler and those guys. How consistent can we make it? So now a thousandth really matters. A quarter of a thousandth really matters. A thousandth on a bracket race really matters. And our kids that are coming up today, my kids are heavily involved, so you got to know that they're heavily talked about. They'll talk about 3 dead 2, 5 dead 1, and you're going, that's a 6-pack in any racing form.
You 6-pack and you're loading up.
That's right.
So let's talk.
The thing is, we see consistency. All I could think about, Joe, when you mentioned that, is Eddie and Matt yesterday in the video about carburetors versus EFI, and how with EFI you're telling the engine how much fuel it's going to get, whereas with a carburetor the engine's asking for fuel and the carburetor's giving it what it asked for. And how Matt was saying in that video, hey, my clutch is more consistent with a carburetor than it is EFI. So Trevor talked, and this is the brain of the carburetor that helps it make it consistent.
The metering block is the brains, and there's a lot of calibration, a lot of configuration into that metering block. Now, backing up, truck and tractor pulling. I love Enderley. I love the big and uglies. I love that world, and I'm very good at that side. EFI, if anybody knows my NHRA background, I was the NHRA. I did all Holley EFI on most of my cars. And we started the COPO program. We worked very hard on that piece there. But carburetors, one thing that you get into a carburetor, the motor is asking for something. We have to develop a fuel curve, a launch, an RPM curve, and it's creating a vacuum. That goes back to you guys as far as total seal, as far as the head flow, and how much it's asking for. You got to build that fuel curve to what that engine's asking for. So that's really all that goes back to even some of the pro tech. That motor's asking for something. How do I make that cylinder happy? How do I create as much power, as much torque in that cylinder individually that I can make? And that goes back to that meter block. Going to emulsion. Everybody goes, oh, just change the jet. No. There's a lot more into that calibration. If you start talking emulsion, a lot of times you'll have 5 or 6 emulsions into it. Now you'll open one up, you'll lower one, does it suck air, does it suck fuel? And that's all when the car will launch. Basically, the fuel level goes down, needle and seat pick it back up. So when it goes down, I need to suck a certain amount of air to go lean. Fills back up, it starts pulling more fuel, not just through the main jet. So there's a lot that goes really into the carburetor science. Just raising and lowering the floats a lot of times will change jet size 4 or 5 thou each time you raise or lower that float.
So what products do you have available for, obviously I would imagine the mainstream carburetors that are used in this style of racing? What products do you have available for those guys? And where do we find out more?
Well, basically I make a 650 from 4-barrel to a bladed carburetor, and that's some discussions there also.
Yep.
But a bladed carburetor, just a real quick about that.
Yes.
A bladed carburetor, we all make 4-barrel carburetors. Everybody knows 4-barrel carburetors because, in all honesty, a 4-barrel carburetor is easy to make. It's drilling a hole. It's boring a hole. Now, a bladed carburetor gets a little bit more complicated, just to the point of we have CNC machines today. I brought a basic booster here. Now we can 3D print things. We'll 3D print main bodies. We'll 3D print everything. We will shape the body around the booster to get the booster to pull fuel through the metering block. So the machines have changed so much from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And then you get into the 90s of the machines starting to come in. And then you start shaping a body, or you start shaping a booster around some of the airflow that you're needing. So if you tell me you want a 1600 CFM carburetor, okay, we can machine that to 1600. If you want it to 2100 CFM carburetors. So we make carburetors roughly around 650 CFM up to around 3000 CFM. So that we can actually make that carburetor specific for that application.
Just gasoline and methanol. Bracket racing guys, they're all in methanol, or a lot of them.
A lot of the guys are methanol. We do from race gas to pump gas to E85 to methanol, Q16. I mean, all those fuels have come into play over the past few years. And Q16, the oxygenated fuels have really changed this technology also, because if you take your carburetor out of the box and say it's a normal off-the-shelf carburetor, if you go to a normal gas situation and put Q16, usually it's around 15 to 20 thousandths more is going to go through the main well and through the boosters.
Absolutely. We did that on Tuesday, by the way.
That's exactly. And most people go, oh, well, I just put Q16 in and went crazy lean. Oh, yeah, it's going to.
Yes.
Yeah, I promise you it's going to. It just don't have the main well or the emulsion pack in it to be able to flow the Q16 through it.
A lot to unpack here, but that's why people can go to the website. Give your vitals, Trevor, because I know there are a lot of people out there that are watching now and in the future that are going to say to themselves, they're looking for an advantage. Like when you go out there, you're battling against 400 guys, you're trying to win a check for $300,000.
No, we're going for $1 million now. We're going for the millions now. We're not going for $300,000 anymore.
Well, they cut it up in the end, right? You get down to 16 cars, they start splitting it up.
That's right.
That's right. Bring it home. But where can we find out more information about Get 'em Performance?
Yeah, go to our website, getemperformance.com, 904-509-0329. And this really is a family business. Grady's 16, Eli's 14, me and my wife and everything, we're heavily involved in the business. We have a handful of employees in there, and all we do is CNC from basic small carburetors all the way up. And really, we focus on billet carburetors, billet parts.
Excellent. Well, great job. Good luck with that, and we'll hopefully see you at a big money bracket race in the future.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, man.
Thanks,
all right,
guys.
more to come here at the Engine Performance Expo. We're going to kick it out to our next video as we are continuing the process of learning, and sometime soon, we'll be revealing
Getting close.
the horsepower numbers. What a day, what a day, what a day. My brain is swollen. I've learned so much today. They told us, don't start cars. We are not going to listen.